Experts figured their empire was about to decline. Stars like DiMaggio and Heinrich were aging. Teams like Boston and Cleveland were coming on strong. In fact, in 1948, the Yankees finished behind both of those clubs, then fired popular manager Bucky Harris. No one could believe General Manager George Weiss's choice to replace Harris in this dugout. Charles Dillon Stengel, who in 9 years as a Major League manager had never finished better than fifth. Yet, with a new crop of stars from the farm system, this comical, crafty old man did more for the pinstripes than any of his predecessors.
For those who doubted Stengel, Joe DiMaggio was there to lend an air of credibility. Writers picked Casey to finish third, without even knowing that baseball's first $100,000 player would be hurt for half the season. Still, the Yankee Clipper made 2 unexpected appearances to help beat the Red Sox, now managed by Joe McCarthy. 2 victories over Boston the last 2 days gave Stengel the pennant by a single game and his first World Series opportunity. Brooklyn was again the opposition. Game 1 was a scoreless pitching duel between Allie Reynolds and Don Newcomb. Tommy Henrich batted in the bottom of the 9th. Henrich delivered the kind of clutch blow that typified his career. Brooklyn, and especially Newcomb, never recovered as the Yankees won the series in 5. Old Reliable, as Henrich was called, was not too old and still most reliable.
He was reliable. Came the 9th inning and he kept the rally alive. He didn't drive the winning run in. If there was a man on first base, he would go to right field, left field, hit and run. He'd always do something to keep the rally going. He'd always come up with some kind of a play. He played the outfield and he played first base. And he excelled at both positions. So Tommy, that's why he was called Old Reliable, because he was always doing something in the late innings.
Though they never won by large margins, the Yankees continued to win pennants through the early 50s as Casey juggled lineups like a magician while conducting the transition from older to younger players. Some of his players were at their peak, like the Scooter Phil Rizzuto, the great shortstop, leadoff man in 1950 MVP, and pitchers like Vic Raschi and this man, Allie Reynolds. The Yankees got Reynolds from Cleveland for Joe Gordon, thanks to some expert advice.
I was sitting there, and they were sitting 2 rows in back of me, and they were cooking up this deal. And they had agreed that Embry would be the man to go for Gordon. But before they shook hands on it, he said, wait a while. He says, there's Joe down here a couple of rows. Let me ask him, because it was just a question of Reynolds or Embry for Gordon. So when he asked me the question in front of Bill Beck, he said, Joe, who would you select? I said, well, I'd take Allie Reynolds, because Allie Reynolds was very difficult for me to hit. And he had good stuff. And that's what when the trade was made. And of course, Allie Reynolds went on to win, as you well know, for several pennants after that. And Bill Beck never forgave me.
Especially when Reynolds threw 2 no-hitters in 51, and the Indians finished 5 games back. In the World Series that year, DiMaggio stepped up in the 4th game against Sal Maglie and hit a 2-run homer to help Reynolds get the victory over the Giants. No one realized that homer would be his last. The Yankees beat the Giants in 6 games, as other players now shared the spotlight with the Yankee Clipper. Actually, Joe realized he could no longer earn that spotlight on the field. I'm not Joe DiMaggio anymore, he proclaimed, and in December of 51, announced his retirement. But with youngsters like Yogi Berra around to hit late-inning homers and drive in crucial runs, the Yankees certainly weren't about to lose their edge. Yogi would be voted MVP 3 times en route to the Hall of Fame. And on the mound, Whitey Ford, a young left-hander who came up in 1950 to win 9 of 10, was also destined for Cooperstown. Of course, so was Mickey Mantle, who came up in 51 at the age of 19 and dazzled the Bronx with his speed and power. But then these young Yankees were also somewhat dazzled themselves.
You're playing sandlot ball in Long Island, and all of a sudden, 3 or 4 years later, you're 2 lockers away from Joe DiMaggio, who you've idolized all your life.
Opening day, there was 6,500 or 65,000 people there for opening day, and I was opening in right field and playing against Ted Williams and Walt Dropo and guys I'd been reading about all my life, and it was pretty frightening for a kid out of Commerce, Oklahoma, to be in New York City playing for the Yankees.
Young Mantle would also have to replace the great DiMaggio as the club's center fielder and star attraction. But in his rookie year, Mantle played next to the legend.
I was playing center field. Mickey Mantle was playing right field. And this was the coming great star of the New York Yankees. There was a fly ball hitting the World Series, and Mantle was chasing the ball, and I kept saying to him, go ahead and take it. So as he approached it, why, he tripped on one of those drain pipes, and he laid there prone. Didn't move a muscle. Of course, the ball didn't get away. I was wrong side, and I caught the ball for the third out.
At that time, I could probably run faster than anybody, and I was running as fast as I could. And when I tried to stop, they have these drains in the outfield with holes in them. They're rubber covers that goes over drain. And when I tried to stop, my back spike caught in that rubber drain, and it wouldn't let my foot give. And it just made the front of my knee shoot right out through the bottom of my knee.
Mickey Mantle probably was unable to realize his true potential because of that injury, yet still served as an impressive heir in the line of DiMaggio, Gehrig, and Ruth. His talents helped the Yankees win 2 more World Championships in '52 and '53, giving them a record 5 straight. And in '55, won his first home run crown. 1 year later, he put everything together. 52 homers, 130 RBIs, a .353 average, and the Triple Crown.
But in 1956 is the first year that I really lived up to all the write-ups and everything that they kept saying that was going to happen, you know. Up until that time, the people still booed me, you know, because I had never even come close to doing the things that Joe DiMaggio did in center field. And then in 1956, I did lead the league in about 5 or 6 different offensive departments, and I really became a Mickey Mantle, I guess.
With Mickey Mantle leading the way, 1956 again spelled pennant for the Bronx Bombers. Having beaten the Yankees for the first time in 7 tries the year before, the Dodgers were again back in the World Series, hoping they had reversed the tide. But in that pivotal 5th game, they would see an 11-game winner named Don Larson reach the ultimate with the only perfect game in World Series history.
That's the best game he ever pitched. He had control. Every pitch I called for, he got it over. He got the one batter, only 3 balls. That was the Pee Wee Reese. That's the only time he threw 3 balls. He had tremendous control, and heck, I think that's going to stand. I don't know how long. So you know, to pitch a perfect game in a World Series, you know, it's never happened. I call all fastballs on Dale Mitchell because I knew, you know, Dell was kind of a slapper. He liked to hit the ball all over. A breaking ball, I didn't want to give him anything soft to hit. When Pinella called that 3rd strike on Mitchell, you never saw a happier guy. You saw how I jumped on Don Larson. He carried me off like I was a little baby.
Perfect games, Triple Crowns, a total of 7 World Championships and 10 pennants. Casey Stengel conducted it all like some Paganini in the sawdust, until his strange dismissal after an ill-fated loss to Pittsburgh in the 1960 World Series. The old professor baffled and confounded reporters and opposing managers with his quirky movements and trips of the tongue.
I don't know, he just had a knack in it. He was a very funny man, but he could get serious when he wanted to. You know, a lot of people said he give that double talk. But if he wants you to understand, he'll talk plain English. If he didn't want you to understand, that's when he'd give you the double talk.
The players knew exactly what he was trying to say. He was no nonsense. When he had a meeting or come out to the mound to talk to you, he was dead serious, and there was no kidding around. I think most of that was done just for the press.
1 year after Stengel's departure, the '61 Yankees fielded a club that may have rivaled the Murderers Row team of 1927 as the strongest ever, one that won 109 games while belting 241 home runs.
I think the 1961 team was the greatest team I ever played for. I think of the 3 catchers we had: Yogi Berra, Elston Howard, and Johnny Blanchard hit 60 home runs between them. Roger Maris hit 61 homers. Mickey Mantle hit 53 or 54. But the thing that was overlooked that year was the great defense we had. We had Clete Boyer at 3rd base, and Tony Kubik at short, and Bobby Richardson at 2nd, and Moose Skowron was playing 1st. And I think the defense that year was probably the finest I ever pitched in front of in my whole career with the Yankees.
But for all that, 1961 belonged to Roger Maris. He played Babe Ruth's position and went after the Bambino's most precious record, slamming home run after home run. And just as Gehrig was there to push Ruth when the Babe hit 60 homers in 1927, Mantle pushed Maris all the way until Roger finally hit number 61. One sense that it could only have happened where it had happened before, Yankee Stadium.
Well, I remember it's the year of the old home run battle, the M&M boys, Mickey and Roger, but aside from the fact that we hit 115 home runs together and drove in like 250 runs. I don't know what it was. It was unbelievable, and it'll probably be a long time before it happens again. It was just an unbelievable year. That's the year that everybody put it all together. Anybody that says there was a better team than that, I'd have to disagree with them. There might have been one as good, but I don't think anybody could ever have been better.
During a 16-year period from 1949 to 1964, the Yankees failed to win the pennant only twice. No other club in history has even approached such a record. So great was their dominance that often the fans in the stands spent as much time rooting for the opposition as the home team, just for variety. Well, they got more than they bargained for, because it appeared the Mantles, Berras, and Fords all aged simultaneously. And without Stengel and Weiss running the farm system, there were no young stars to take their place. After the Yankees lost to St. Louis in the 1964 World Series, the Bronx Bombers plummeted to 6th, then 10th, then floundered for a decade. At a point, people wondered if there would ever be another flag flown here. Well, that was before a determined shipbuilder named George Steinbrenner bought the club in 1973.
We are in it as sportsmen, but I wanted to be sure because it's important to me, it's important to all of us, and it's particularly important to New York and to the Yankees that the group that gets behind the Yankees at this point have the wherewithal and the interest and the diversity to get the kind of job done that the sports writers, that the fans, that the city and the media in New York deserve.
When George Steinbrenner came over, I was asked to come back again as a pitching coach, and I remember our first meeting in Shea Stadium during the wintertime. We sat there for 9 hours just talking about our whole team, each player, what we could do to improve the team. And I just said to myself, I got a feeling the Yankees are going to be on their way again.
So when Steinbrenner bought the team, he almost bought a shell. You know, there wasn't very much there. And the only way you could have built the Yankees back is the way he did it.
Today's Yankees, the Jacksons, Guidrys, and Winfields, receive as much attention as the Ruths, DiMaggios, and Mantles. Some say they aren't as good as the others, a debatable point that's not at issue here. The Pinstripes are still the team to beat, if only because of their incredible history. Baseball has produced only one dynasty, here in the house that Ruth built. It would take decades of success for any other team to even challenge that fact. And as you stand here in the middle of it all, you get the feeling that the men who made this happen, from the Iron Horse to the Babe, from the Yankee Clipper to the Scooter, Casey, Mickey, Yogi, Whitey Ford, would never allow it. I'm Jan Hutchins. So long from Yankee Stadium.